replace Ayatollah Khamenei. We have no idea. It could be a worst in faction. Is there an argument to make to support Israel in some limited strikes? Sure, I would be open to that argument, but I don't think there's a single American out there, Republican or Democrat, who would agree that the United States should spend money, let alone put our troops in harm's way, to cater to a war that we technically don't have anything to do.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Common Thread, where we cut through the media fog so you don't have to. Tonight's episode of CNN's Newsnight with Abby Phillip was supposed to be a serious conversation about rising tensions in the Middle East, particularly the powder keg between Iran and Israel. But if you've watched even 5 minutes of CNN lately, you already know what actually happened. Instead of an honest breakdown of foreign policy or any meaningful nuance, the entire panel turned the segment into yet another cheap excuse to bash Donald Trump. Because apparently, even international conflict is somehow his fault now. Go figure. But wait, here's where it gets interesting. Just when it felt like the panel was collapsing into another round of emotional blame games and Trump derangement syndrome theater, one person decided not to play along. Enter Michael Singleton. While the rest of the talking heads spiraled into their usual hot takes and exaggerated hypotheticals, Singleton was the only one who kept his cool, stayed focused on policy, and tried to steer the conversation back to logic and leadership. Imagine that, someone on CNN actually trying to talk like an adult. I know, it sounds like a miracle. Singleton didn't shout. He didn't pander. He didn't throw out partisan jabs just for applause. What he did do was offer a thoughtful commentary on the real risks of military escalation, the costs of foreign entanglement, and the importance of responsible leadership in moments like these. And in doing so, he made the rest of the panel look like a group of performative amateurs playing geopolitical dress-up. So if you're ready to see one guy stay grounded while the rest unravel on live national television, let's roll the clip.
Republican administrations bomb Iran's nuclear facilities,
and not Iran, but we certainly went into Afghanistan, Iraq.
Yeah, but I think that this is important.
Under false pretenses.
There's a reason that it hasn't happened, and there's a reason why everybody who wants him to do this is arguing that he should do it, because all the other presidents haven't done it, except that Donald Trump ran on not doing this kind of thing.
I think that the risk here is you see the toppling of the regime, and none of us know who in the hell would replace Ayatollah Khamenei. We have no idea. It could be a worst in faction. Is there an argument to make to support Israel in some limited strikes? Sure, I would be open to that argument, but I don't think there's a single American out there, Republican or Democrat, who would agree that the United States should spend money, let alone put our troops in harm's way, to cater to a war that we technically don't have anything to do with. So I think the president has to be very judicious in whatever decision he ultimately makes here.
Let me give you a couple seconds because we got to go. But
I think it's very sobering to realize that, so many of these folks that Trump put in his cabinet in very important positions have no experience. And a lot of Republicans in Congress, who's in the Senate, who care tremendously about foreign policy and about the military, voted for them out of loyalty to Trump. And now we find ourselves moving, Navy assets to the region, and the Secretary of the Navy is an art collector with zero military experience. We find ourselves on the brink of military action. We find ourselves involved tangentially or directly in a war in the Middle East, and the Secretary of Defense is a guy who hangs out on signal threads and who, has no leadership experience, a Fox News host. You've got Tulsi Gabbard. And so, I think the roosters have come to the home to roost, and it's very concerning. It's very concerning as an American. I forget partisanship.
It was notable because there was a key meeting on this conflict that happened at Camp David, and Tulsi Gabbard wasn't even invited to the meeting. There are just different reasons being given for why that is, maybe a scheduling conflict, maybe something else. But it's both her inexperience and also the fact that there's actually a lot of people in this White House who don't trust her, who think that she has poor judgment, who think that she is sort of not a MAGA conservative in terms of how she deals with foreign policy. And she is the top figure in the White House who gives the president intelligence from the intelligence community. That's extraordinary.
I think that point is moot now, because we're potentially on the brink of launching missiles into a foreign country. And so regardless of what you think about these individuals' experience, the people who are around them, those career individuals, are going to have to advise the hell out of them to make the best decisions to advise the president. My hope is that the president doesn't make this decision. I don't think that this is going to end well for us, because there is the opportunity for Iran to retaliate. And if they do that against the bases we have in the region, we will have no choice but to further this. And there's not a single American who wants to send their sons and daughters to another conflict in the Middle East, trillions of dollars potential of taxpayer. We can't afford it.
Right.
I think
the administration has not been on the same page about this. First of all, Marco Rubio came out and said, well, we had no idea what was going on. And then days later, Trump was like, oh, no, we knew everything that was going on. And now we have Tulsi Gabbard, who is an accused Assad asset, by the way. We shouldn't forget that. And we have, to your point, Pete Hegseth. Do you feel comfortable, even no matter what happens, do you feel comfortable with this administration and all their discord and all their lies overseeing a potential war that would have a massive impact on our geopolitics in that region and in other places as well?
I feel comfortable with hoping, Tiffany, that the administration makes the right decision to not get entangled in the Middle East again.
Are they capable of making the right decision?
I think so.
So here's what's really going on. Tiffany Cross tosses out one of those loaded, passive-aggressive questions, the kind that's less about getting an answer and more about scoring points. She turns to Shermichael Singleton, pretending to seek his honest take, but you can hear it in her voice. This isn't a good faith discussion. It's bait, and she's hoping he slips up and drags Trump into the mud. But Shermichael? He's not biting. Instead, he steers the whole thing back to what actually matters. The real policy decisions, the real risks, the real leadership questions. It's refreshing, honestly. In a room full of people trying to score Twitter points, here's a guy trying to have a grown-up conversation. And that word right there, results, that's what it all comes down to. Whether you love or hate Trump, what matters is what gets done. But CNN doesn't care about that. If there's even one hiccup in the process, they blow it up like it invalidates everything. And let's be real. That question Tiffany threw out, it's not about concern for the country. It's about cornering someone. Every major military decision in history comes with risk and critics. But instead of acknowledging that, they act like Trump's decisions should be crystal clear or automatically wrong. No middle ground, no nuance, just partisan spin. And then, of course, it wouldn't be CNN without tossing out the Assad asset smear about Tulsi Gabbard. They've got one playbook. If you question their narrative, you're either a foreign agent, a puppet, or a problem. Tulsi's crime? She's anti-war, she's independent, and she refuses to parrot the DC script. That's why they can't stand her. But here's what really bothers me. This growing trend in the media where someone's lived experience, their battlefield history, their actual resume, just doesn't count unless it aligns with the mainstream narrative. Shermichael and Pete Hegseth both bring something real to the table. Not punditry, not sound bites, but grounded experience. And yet, they're brushed aside by talking heads who treat credentials like cosplay. And this is where the damage gets done. It's not just about smearing individuals. It's about slowly convincing viewers that only one kind of opinion is valid. That if you've served, fought, or challenged the status quo, your voice is somehow less informed than a studio analyst with zero skin in the game. That's the real danger here, not just the bias, but the erasure of perspective.
Because, like you said, Congress hasn't done anything. They haven't normalized immigration laws and modernized them. And as a result, you have this whole underclass of workers in this country who then get penalized while the employers don't.
Right. Look, we do have an immigration problem, but I think immigration has to uniquely be tied to deficits in our country. So if there are industries and sectors that require additional workers where Americans, we don't have enough people, for example, then you have to pull people obviously from other places. And it's clear to me that the president is recognizing that as it pertains to agriculture and the service industry.
They undid.
The question becomes, and we don't have an answer to this, what's the ultimate end game? What is the end game here? If the current regime topples, who in the world are we advocating to lead Iran?
All right.
We don't have an answer to that question yet.
The fact that you have a director of national intelligence who you're claiming is not irrelevant, I'm claiming is not qualified, is incredibly concerning as we are at the brink of war. And I think, him being surrounded by military experts running the DOD and in high positions who could, at best, play battleship as part of their qualifications is very, very concerning.
All right, we got
I think it's a
coming
little
up
naive to
next
say
for
that he's not
us.
getting good intelligence.
President Trump is next.
Okay.
All right, I've got to pause everything for a second because Abby Phillip just pulled one of the most absurd rhetorical flips I've seen in a while. And trust me, that's saying something. She looked straight into the camera and suggested that Donald Trump securing the border has now somehow become a problem because, get this, he can't use it as political ammo anymore. I mean, that's the logic we're working with? That doing your job too well is now suspicious? Let's be real here. Trump promised border security. He delivered. He followed through on something voters actually elected him to do. But in the strange upside-down media world CNN operates in, following through on a campaign promise is now a liability. Abby's take is basically, sure, he solved the problem, but now he can't exploit it. Imagine being upset that an issue was resolved because it no longer serves as emotional leverage in a campaign cycle. That's not journalism. That's marketing strategy dressed up as political commentary. And it gets worse. This whole perspective exposes how far removed these elite media panels are from the everyday American who actually lives with the consequences of bad border policy. People who've seen crime rise, who've watched communities change overnight, who are watching wages stagnate because the labor market is flooded with illegal workers. For these Americans, border security isn't a cable news soundbite. It's a survival issue. But to Abby and her colleagues, it's just a chess piece, something to talk about, never something to fix. And then, as if on cue, Ana Navarro jumps in with the intellectual equivalent of a Twitter thread rant. She goes after Trump's cabinet choices, not based on their policy decisions or leadership records, but because Pete Hegseth uses Signal. Yes, Signal, a secure, encrypted messaging app that literally millions of people use. That's her national security concern. Is this journalism or a high school group chat? But Ana doesn't stop there. She actually has the nerve to say Pete Hegseth has no leadership experience. I nearly spit out my drink. Hegseth is a decorated Army officer, a Bronze Star recipient, a man who's led troops in war zones, made life or death decisions, and actually served this country under fire. And Ana Navarro, who's never worn a uniform, never led a team in combat, sits in a studio and casually dismisses all of that because he's associated with Fox News? That's the bar now? Let's call this what it is. It's not about security, it's not about qualifications, it's about tribalism. If you're not aligned with their political aesthetic, if you don't parrot their exact worldview, they will diminish everything about you. Service, sacrifice, experience, it all gets erased with a smug quip and a dismissive tone. That's the CNN formula. And look, if this segment felt especially packed with liberal nonsense, that's not your imagination. I left it all in. Why? Because someone commented last week saying, sometimes it's fun to hear the liberal takes too. I like laughing at them. And honestly, I get it. If I have to sit through this parade of elite delusion just to pull out the truth, you might as well get to enjoy the circus too. So I left in all the cringe, all the snark, all the performative outrage, so we can dissect it together. These folks talk like they live on another planet. They don't wrestle with real issues. They curate vibes. They don't offer solutions. They rehearse narratives. That's why Abby's comment struck such a chord. It wasn't just wrong. It revealed how cynical this game really is. Fixing the problem isn't the point. Maintaining the problem so you can use it for your next TV hit. That's the game. So, let's bring it home. What do you think? Did Abby's comment strike you as completely unhinged or just business as usual for corporate media? And Ana, was she even awake during this panel or just riffing from a teleprompter? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear your take. And if you found this takedown refreshing, you know what to do. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who's tired of hearing that up is down and right is wrong. This has been The Common Thread, where we keep it real so you don't lose your mind watching the media echo chamber. See you next time.